You see, when you plant seeds and you train people, you never know where they're going to go. You never know what God is going to use them for. We have 32 institutions around the world. Over 3,000 pastors are being trained in those institutions today. Over 15,000 in extension and informal training. We are about releasing a whole army of national people to their own part of the world. That's what we do. And many of our workers are involved in that in significant ways. You can help us by supporting what we call the Timothy Fund, because many of these young men, they can't afford to go to college. And so we help them with scholarships, and we help sponsor these schools so that they can get an education and get out and do the work that God's called them to do. Last thing we do is we care for people in crisis. We live in a world that's got all kinds of problems. It's a world marked by poverty and hatred and hunger, disease. Hundreds and hundreds of children. This is a little gypsy girl without any parents in Romania. It's being helped by Jen Lee. I took that picture when she was in timeout. Like all children, she was being bad. She was sitting on a little stool waiting to be released again, and I snapped that picture. She was so cute. That's the world that we live in. We've got to care for those people in need. And so through education, airdo programming, and social justice issues, and clean water, and community development, we can make a difference in those parts of the world that have significant need. We got people like Gordon and Anita Coolidge, who come out of Dunnville here.
Dunnville.
Gord was the chief chef at McMaster University. He and Anita felt called to missions. They're looking after something called the Village of Hope that my wife and I started in Zimbabwe. They've just taken it to a whole new level, caring for hundreds of kids. We've got over 400 kids in the school now. We will have 200 children that we will be looking after in homes because there's simply no one to look after them. You know, the best way to look after children is in the extended family. I understand that. But because of HIV/AIDS in Africa, you have people who are you have grandmothers trying to look after 10 children. They simply can't do it. The need is too great. We come alongside and help. We responded significantly to Haiti this year. Thank you for your support of that. Close to $2 million came in to help us, and we're on a 3-year plan to help in different ways in rebuilding in the country of Haiti. Through CFGB programming, where you give us money and the Canadian government multiplies it 4 to 1, we take $1, we've now got $5 and we can use it for feeding. My wife and I were involved in this in Zimbabwe for years because there was so much drought in that country. We have a project in Congo that's reaching literally hundreds of people. And then you can sponsor children through Child Care Plus. This was a young man that came to Neg, or Frank Jurlick's orphanage in India. He came with his steel box about 10 years ago. This was him on graduation day with Uncle Frank, with Papa Frank. A child that was sponsored by a Canadian and helped to see his life transformed and changed. You can be a part of that. We have 275 global workers living overseas today, 49 countries, serving in 66 countries. Good folks like Don and Marie-José. Deployed 45 new global workers last year, in the last 2 years, 39 midtermers in the last 11 months. We're trying to see things grow and develop. We believe that in the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada, we can do more than we're doing right now. We're in a good season. But friends, we can do more. Now, I'm a numbers guy, and I'm always playing with numbers, and so I did a little arithmetic a little while ago. Now, we survive by giving. That's the primary method by which we operate. We need you to tithe to your church. We need your church to tithe to the district, and the district to tithe to our office, and that takes care of the administrative side of things. And after you've done that, we need you to give to missions. Do you know, if every adult in the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada gave just $1 a day, just $1 a day, and most of us here can give way more than that. If I only gave $1 a day, I'd be ashamed of myself. After I tithe, I can do a lot more than $1 a day. That's a cup of coffee from Tim Hortons. I'm a Starbucks guy, so I got to give at least $4 a day. But do you know if every adult in the PAOC across our nation gave $1 a day to PAOC missions, we would double our missions income. We could not only send these folks here to Spain and the Elis to Japan, but we could double the 275 people we currently have. We have something back there called Give Every Day. Pick one up. A little commitment form and make a commitment to do that. Through your local church or directly to our office. Primarily through your local church and the missions programs that they have. But give at least $1 a day to help people like Sharon in Shekinah find a home. And that young man that you saw there go from being in a steel box to graduating from college. Give every day. What can we do with $1 a day? Double our international workers force around the world. New initiatives to unreached people groups. We'd have $1 million extra for that. We'd have another $4 million for restricted access nations and the work that people like Brian and Carrie are doing. We'd be able to reach and disciple global youth and children around the world. We could plant hundreds of these churches through people like Adrian Thomas and Sandy down in the Dominican Republic and other places in India. We could train way more than 3,000 national workers. We could double that to 6,000 people around the world. Because we'd have an extra $2 million to help them get into the work that they do. We could increase our social justice concerns and community development around the world and help all kinds of kids like these ones that you see. Right on the button. So I'd stop at 7:30 and give you my conclusion, so that's where I am right now. Here's the scripture that I want you to meditate on tonight. After Jesus took him aside, away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears and then he spit and touched the man's tongue. Now, I'm not suggesting we use that method of praying for people in our modern world today. That's probably not very popular, but Jesus did that. Jesus looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh, I want you to think about this. How does Jesus see the world in which we live? I think the world that Jesus looks down on our world sometimes and how he responds is with a deep sigh. He sees those millions of people who have never heard his name. He sees those children abandoned and thrown away. He sees hungry people. He sees countries like Europe like Spain and France, that used to have the gospel of Jesus Christ, that are now so secular that almost no one knows Jesus. And Jesus responds with a deep sigh. It's somewhere between anger and frustration and desire. He doesn't want it to stay like that. He gave us a job to do. Jesus illustrates it here. He says to this man, with regards to his ears, he says, be opened. And at this, the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus wants us, in the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada, to keep on speaking those words in the world. Think of those 100,000 people on the streets of that city in Asia, feeling for the face of God but not finding the true God because there's nobody to introduce them to Jesus. Think about them and say, be opened. Be opened. May their eyes be open to see. Think about the hundreds of little kids around the world that are abandoned or thrown away or have or live on the train stations in Calcutta and nobody cares. Think about them and say, be opened. That life and transformation might come to them. That's what the Lord wants us to do. Friends, we have to do it together. And as we come to these last days in the church, let's not forget what we are about.